What is going on, everyone? I had the opportunity to fill in for the afternoon drive host on 97.3 ESPN from 2 to 6 on Wednesday, July 24th. I decided to record the entire live show and then create the best of highlights for this podcast. I was joined by Josh Hennig of 97.3 ESPN, and we both co-hosted the show together. We ended up discussing topics like Ben Simmons' jump shot, the Philadelphia Eagles going into training camp, some Phillies news. We debated a lot about the tiers when it comes to the quarterbacks in the NFL, so that was very entertaining. Conversations about Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, NFL topics for sure. It was a very fun day, and I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get to the tiers. I'm excited for this. I'm excited.
So just to give people a little bit of an idea of a background, the Mike Sando every year, he started with ESPN doing this, now he's with The Athletic. Mike Sando for years has been reviewing people around the league executives, GMs, scouts, NFL analysts, people who are in the know. He does it anonymously so nobody has to get in trouble, but he wants an honest opinion about the tiers. You know, are you a tier 1 quarterback, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4? And like, for example, tier 1 is Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. So Mike Sando's list showed Carson Wentz as a tier 2 quarterback. And frankly, Hunter, I'm not bothered as much about Wentz being a tier 2 as much as I'm bothered by the fact of who is still a tier 1.
Okay, and that's fair. I mean, you look at Carson Wentz in this article. He did have 5 tier 1 votes, so 5 people put him in tier 1, 34 tier 2 votes, and 16 tier 3 votes. I think we can both agree that tier 2 is a good number for him. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense for 2 reasons. One, because he's only been in the league for a couple of years. He missed so much time from between year 2 and year 3. He played all of year 1. We forget about that. I think he's still too early to fully determine what he can be. Now, he has time to grow into that tier 1 for sure. And I think if he has a full season without getting injured like he did in 2017, he's for sure probably like a lower tier 1 guy. I think what helps Wentz's argument to say that he belongs there is the fact that who else is in tier 2 for Mike Sando's rankings? It's Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan is.
Matt Ryan's a league MVP, led a team to a Super Bowl, and if it wasn't for a couple of bad play calls and miracle catches by the Patriots, the Falcons would have a Super Bowl ring. So it's not like you're grouped in the same category as Tyrod Taylor.
No.
It's not like we're diminishing Wentz's ability. And I think that the people who don't understand the tiers, maybe because what happens is people get so bent out of shape over what number you are on a list. And that's why tiers are better, because what it does is it allows you to say, look, Carson Wentz is not on Tom Brady's level. He's not on Aaron Rodgers' level yet. He's not one of those guys. But he's right the next tier down. And I think that's a fair assessment. I think that for anyone who's a problem with that, I think they're being just irrational.
Big time. Now, this is a tier / ranking. So he is 10th. He is the 10th quarterback in the list, and it goes by tiers and by ranking overall.
And I think most Eagle fans wouldn't be upset if you told them that he was the number 10 quarterback on Mike Sando's list.
Yeah, not at all. One thing that we can probably both agree on as well is it's not so much his skill set, because his skill set shows that he can be at the top of the league. It's more the fact of the injuries. Let's be real. So because he's in the second tier, it really is because of the fact that he can't stay on the field, which is a big problem.
Well, that's my problem with who's in tier 1.
Okay, so
I don't like Roethlisberger in tier 1.
Okay.
Roethlisberger has missed about almost 20% of his career games due to injuries.
Would you say that he's on the list because of what he has done overall in his career when it comes to Super Bowls and things of that nature, not so much where he is right now in his career?
I think Ben is tier 1 because of his resume, not as much because of where he is right now. I think Ben right now is much closer to Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz than he is to Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's where we started having the conversation on Friday about how we evaluate athletes. we have this tendency to overvalue championships when it comes to athletes' individual value. Teams win championships, not players. You can't tell me that Terry Bradshaw is a better quarterback than Dan Marino. Just like you can't tell me that Peyton Manning is a better quarterback than anybody just because he has Super Bowls. Peyton Manning is Peyton Manning because of who he is, with or without Super Bowls. But what happens is we take these championships and we take these guys' resumes and we make them more important than they are. Instead of evaluating the person on a case-by-case basis, we take things like championships and playoff wins and stuff and over-apply it. What happens at the end of the day? You cannot bring to me a quarterback's win-loss record and tell me that is a major element in your evaluation of that quarterback. Because if that's the case, then Terry Bradshaw is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Dude had 4 rings in a decade. But you're not going to have that conversation because I'll have the same argument with you that Roger Staubach is a better quarterback than Terry Bradshaw. He was more accurate, more consistent, more athletic, and more clutch than Terry Bradshaw was, but he has less rings. So I think that when you look at Ben Roethlisberger, he's only in tier 1 because of his resume, and it is less about the fact of where he is right now in his career. And I think right now, at this second in his career, he's closer to the Matt Ryans and the Carson Wentzes, which to me puts him in tier 2.
I 100% do agree with you on that. He is someone who is in tier 1 because of the fact that in his prime, in his past, there was a lot of success, but where he is right now, you can't tell me it's at the top of his game and at the top of the league. And when you talked about the championships, it's funny because as time goes on, people forget context. It's
Always.
just about the ring. But there is so much involved in that ring when you think of rings individually that always gets forgotten. And I know I've been on the record being a LeBron guy, and that's not a takeaway from MJ, and I love both. Realistically, both were so fantastic and dominated the league at such a different level that they are capable of having that conversation because they're just so great in their respected careers in their
as
era.
Individuals.
Right, exactly. But one thing I always like to point out with the people who throw out the record of LeBron in the finals, he took that Cavs team to the finals and lost, right? You can't take that and use it against him for that loss because they had no shot and it was embarrassing that team was even in it. But people who go 6-0 MJ, they don't talk about the first round exit. So if LeBron didn't even get to the finals, he wouldn't have been criticized as much as losing in the finals. And that's where I'm on your side with the argument of championships and rings.
Well, it's the same thing with Montana versus Brady. You'll have people who say, well, Montana never lost in a Super Bowl. But you're just counting all the time he lost to the playoffs, period.
Exactly.
He didn't make it there every year. He did lose to the Giants. He did lose to Lawrence Taylor. He did lose to the Redskins. He lost to the Cowboys at one point. It's not like Montana was undefeated in the postseason. And that's what's really silly about this. People overvalue one aspect of someone's resume so much they neglect the rest of it. Look, let's be realistic. Who is the greatest quarterback in Steelers history? I'd argue it's Ben Roethlisberger. Because he has done more with less compared to Terry Bradshaw. Terry Bradshaw was surrounded by a wall-to-wall Hall of Famers. If you don't win a championship with Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Mean Joe Green, Jack Lambert, Franco Harris, and that whole monster team, you have more problems that we have to have a conversation about. But whereas Ben Roethlisberger, there were times that he's been winning games with totally different receivers from one year to the next, totally different running backs from one year to the next. I mean, if I told you that Ben Roethlisberger would have the stats that he has right now, and he has gone through all the receivers that he has and all the running backs that he has, you'd be impressed. So I'm not diminishing Roethlisberger at all in this conversation. But to me, rating a quarterback is not about his resume. We're not talking about Hall of Fame. We're talking about what is your standing in the game right now. And the fact that you have, how many people voted for Roethlisberger tier 1?
For Tier 1 Roethlisberger, we have, hold on, that's Phillip Rivers. Here we go. Ben Roethlisberger, 32 Tier 1 votes, 23 Tier 2 votes. So, it's not as dominant.
32 people to say he's a Tier 1 guy makes me question them as talent evaluators. Because what you're doing is you're grading him based on his resume and not as much on who he is right now, at this second, 2019. Let's be realistic. Ben Roethlisberger is one non-football offseason from becoming the Pillsbury Doughboy. Okay? The dude looks like he's one offseason workout regimen away from being fluffy. He is not in great condition at this point in his life and his career.
Absolutely. And for me to scroll down and the next person be Russell Wilson, and he had 29 Tier 1 votes, 26 Tier 2, I'm taking Russell Wilson over Ben Roethlisberger any day of the week right now to start my franchise. So how do they see that much of a where are they getting the Ben Roethlisberger love over someone like Russell Wilson? Am I crazy to say that? Wouldn't you also start your franchise with Wilson right now over Big Ben?
And I think that's a great point. That's where I think the tiered conversation has come in. Who are you starting your franchise with? Who is the quarterback that you undeniably want on the field?
Well, in this Tier 1 category, should I roll off the one that... See, Pat Mahomes is in there after one season. So
he did have 50 touchdowns. He was the league MVP, and he's younger.
And that's the list. That's what I'm getting at here. So with these Tier 1 quarterbacks, you have Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, of course, and Drew Brees, but they're at the back ends of their career. Then you have Pat Mahomes. Andrew Luck is someone, if you really like him over Mahomes, but I don't think so. When you talk about starting your franchise with this Tier 1 group of guys, it's pretty obvious that Pat Mahomes would be the one. But if we talked about Carson Wentz not having a long career or a big enough career yet to really solidify a number one spot, is it too quick to say Mahomes is automatically a Tier 1 quarterback because of 1 year?
Look, I'm a believer that Pat Mahomes, while having a great season last year, will take a step back this year. Just because the law of averages say that you throw 50 touchdowns 1 year, you're not going to throw 50 again the next year. But I think putting him in Tier 1 is fine because, to me, the tiering system should be based on who is the best right now. And if you're starting a franchise, are you going to go with Pat Mahomes or Matt Ryan?
Pat Mahomes.
Yeah. Objectively, are you going to go Wentz or Mahomes?
Oh, Mahomes.
Right. Objectively, you go, and that's where it comes down to. I think that what puts Mahomes in that Tier 1 is that there's legit, 5 dudes you would start a franchise with instead of Mahomes? Maybe less?
Yeah, and one thing that just came to my mind as I'm looking through these tiers, and Aaron Rodgers pops up as number 1, 53 Tier 1 votes. 2 people decided to vote him Tier 2.
I want to know who those 2 people are.
Me too. And
I want to have a conversation
But
with
this
them.
is what comes to my mind. Well, this is what comes to my mind. We talk about Carson Wentz, and we talk about his injury-prone body. Aaron Rodgers is so good, and he plays through so many injuries, but are we not talking about him limping around with one leg every single year? Are we not talking about a collarbone every single year? So at what point is Aaron Rodgers this injury-prone guy? Like, do you think Green Bay sports radio rips apart Aaron Rodgers every day about being injury-prone and not wanting him to be there anymore like we do with Carson Wentz? Not all of us, but there are some fans that go that way.
It's a good point because I think that we act like Wentz is the only guy who's ever been injured sometimes. Like when you have a conversation with the Wentz because we all know that guy, whether it's a buddy of yours, whether it's the guy you run into at the bar. I've run into this guy at ShopRite, okay? We all run into the guy who comes up to you and says, yo, bro, they should have kept Foles because he's healthier than Wentz. Or guy who says, my biggest concern about Wentz is his health. Like that, they always lead off with the health, right? They always bring up the ribs and the wrist in college and the torn knee and the broken back last year. Like they're so fixated on it. And my immediate answer is, outside of Eli Manning and Tom Brady, name me a quarterback who hasn't been injured. You can't.
Right.
Like there's a total exceptions. Like it's Drew Brees, Eli Manning, and Tom Brady. And guess what? 2 of those 3 quarterbacks are Hall of Famers. And the third one is a borderline guy who's probably going to get in just because he's got 2 rings. So let's be realistic. Nobody plays every game. And this idea that Rodgers is healthier than Wentz, or Roethlisberger is healthier than Wentz, or anybody is so much healthier than Wentz, it's football. You're going to get injured. It's so rare to play every game. That's what makes Brady not being injured since he tore his knee over 10 years ago, or Eli Manning having 200 plus consecutive games played. That's what makes these guys so unique. What makes Wentz unique isn't the fact he's on the field every day. What makes him unique is that when he is on the field, you know you have a chance to win the football game. And to me, that is where the value of Wentz is.
I think it's fair to be a little concerned with his past. It is a little aggressive with how many years in a row that he has been banged up. Like, it's okay to be a little concerned at times that he does find a way to get injured. But to think that it's impossible to find a way to fix your style of play or to find a way to grow as a player and put yourself in the right positions, like it's totally possible to do that. So I believe that Carson Wentz will understand now that he is growing and he has a ton of experience. He will understand how the NFL works to kind of keep his body in a better position to not get hit so hard and to get hit like that. It's possible to learn how to stay healthy. It is, especially in a league like this. It's very possible.
609-403-0973. Do want to hear from you out there listening to us. Has a question about the article itself, Hunter, because Hunter has it in front of him right now. Because I don't have an athletics subscription.
Yes,
I'm a bad person.
I'm new to the game, and I'm very happy about it.
Texter says, I haven't seen the article, but are Jared Goff and Dak Prescott in the same tier as Wentz?
Okay, so Jared Goff is in the Tier 2 category, along with Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield.
Okay.
And in the Tier 3 category...
I think it's too high for Baker.
I agree. In the Tier 3 category, you have Dak Prescott at 17, but he has 16 Tier 2 votes.
Okay.
38 Tier 3 votes. So that it seems like majority of the people see him in that Tier 3, and actually one Tier 4, which, to be honest with you, I didn't even get low enough to notice that there was a Tier 4. Yeah, I thought it stopped at 3.
I think Tier 4, and we'll get into that in the next segment, by the way. We're going to go through the whole list.
That's cool.
I think Tier 4 is like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, probably.
Well, I watched Ryan Fitzpatrick play at a Tier 3 level last year at times.
Okay, let's not get carried away with the chest hair and the gold chain from D-Jax. He ain't there anymore. D-Jax ain't walking through that door, as Rick Pitino would say. But I think the texter brings up a good point. Where are those two other young quarterbacks? The same draft. Those are the three quarterbacks from that draft. Goff, Wentz, Prescott. And they're always going to be linked together, just like Rivers, Roethlisberger, and Manning will always be linked together. I think that is correct. I think Dak Tier 3, Prescott Tier 2 I'm fine with that. And I'm mostly fine with it for two reasons. One, because I think Dak showed that when he didn't have Ezekiel Elliott, he struggled a bit. Now, I'm not saying he can't get better. I'm not saying he can't elevate. We've seen Prescott basically get better every year. So it's not that he can't reach Tier 2 or maybe even Tier 1. I'm not going to totally hold him back, but I do think that we have to factor in his environment. We overlook that there's only a handful of quarterbacks who can elevate beyond their environment. Unless your names are Brady, Rodgers, Breeze, and Peyton Manning, you're not going to elevate guys much more beyond what they are. So, and Russell Wilson probably goes in that category too, because he's played with some weird names as well. I think we overlook the fact that quarterback is only as good as offensive line blocking for him. He's only as good as the receivers who are catching for him. He's only good as the play caller calling plays for him. We talked about with Jeff Mosher and Ryan Rothstein, I think it was yesterday, about the fact that, Matthew Stafford's been through 5-6 coordinators. Matt Ryan's been through 4 or 5 coordinators. It's hard to be a consistent quarterback if your situation is constantly changing. And I think that we overlook the fact that the games that Prescott didn't play well, it's when he didn't have Ezekiel Elliott. He didn't have Tyron Smith at left tackle, who's arguably the best left tackle in the NFL. He didn't play last year with Travis Frederick, who's one of the best centers in the NFL. The Cowboys had injuries on offense. They got Amari Cooper halfway through the season. He didn't play with Jason Witten in his prime like Tony Romo did. So I think there's a part of you that wonders, if you took Dak Prescott and swapped him with Pat Mahomes, is he throwing 50 touchdowns? Probably not. But is he throwing between 30 and 40? Probably. Because I think that we overlook the fact that a quarterback is so dependent on his environment. And that's why a problem I have with Goff. I'm okay with him in tier 2, but I don't like him being in the same conversation as some of these other guys because I think Goff is a byproduct of McVay. I think if you swap any quarterback in tier 2, and some of them even in tier 3 with Jared Goff, they're probably putting up similar numbers in the Rams offense.
A lot to unfold here. I'll start with Dak Prescott. I believe I'm an Eagles fan that actually has some respect for Dak Prescott, even though a lot of people don't. I think he has value. I think he is a good little player. He's better than just
good little player.
Yeah, well, because he's better than he's better than a game manager, but he's not this elite force. The problem is what you're going to have to pay him would be paying him to be an elite force, but he does have value, and I think down the line in fourth quarters, he makes smart plays. I don't think he's as bad as some of the Eagles fans say he is just because he's on the Dallas Cowboys. But I want to target more on that Jared Goff thing. We've been on the airwaves talking about Jared Goff before, and that was something you brought up. I understand what you're saying because we saw Jared Goff with Jeff Fisher and we saw Jared Goff with Sean McVay. And did we not see almost a quarterback that can't even be in the league and then one of the league's best because of the situation he was surrounded with?
Yes.
At the same time, I remember specifically watching Jared Goff make some throws last year where I was stunned, my jaw dropped. He has a solid arm. He puts it in the spot. Like, he is a good quarterback. He makes plays happen.
Yeah.
I don't think he's insane. I would put him at the bottom of tier 2, flirting with tier 3 as well, but I would put him in the bottom of tier 2. I don't think you're giving him enough credit for what he does, and you're saying it's too much of Sean McVay. I'm actually I think Sean McVay is overrated more than I think Jared Goff is.
Yes, I can agree with that. I don't think you can overrate McVay because McVay, to me, is the orchestrator of the offense. You know, he is the director. He is the puppet master. He is the maestro.
I think he's soft. He is the offensive guru. That is what everyone says. This guy knows. There's times where, and maybe we are just so used to Doug Peterson, but I've watched this guy multiple times punt on 4th and 1, 4th and 2 in big time situations in the Super Bowl. It's 4th and 2. If you are an offensive guru on the 50th yard line, and this is the Super Bowl, you got to draw up a play. This is your thing. You are an offensive guy. So to back up and not produce in that type of situation as an offensive guru, soft in my opinion. It's soft.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I go soft, but I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, like if that's your motto, if that's your thing, you are this guy who can create offense.
I think you're overlooking the fact that there's literally only one guy who shut him down, and his name is Bill Belichick.
But that Patriots team was not good. That day they scored 3 points.
But
3 points.
See, but that's where you're overlooking the team game. The team defense that Belichick. Think about the quarterbacks Belichick's going against the Super Bowl. He has shut almost everyone down.
3 points can't happen.
He has shut down almost every offense that came in against his defenses. And I think we overlook the fact of how great Belichick is, and we hold that against McVay.
Well, let me clarify this.
And
Sean McVay's a good coach.
I think Peterson's a better football coach and a better head coach than McVay. And we have to get the break. But I will say, and we'll continue on the other side.
We need to.
I believe that McVay should be not blamed as much for the Super Bowl as much as the fact of his non-adjustments. The lack of adjustments in the second half, to me, was more concerning with the Rams than McVay himself.
But does that go on him?
Well, part of it, yes.
Okay.
Part of it does. Part of it also goes on your staff. I think your staff has to help you as well. We wanted to continue with the text messages and our Sean McVay conversation. I did want to leave it cut off there. I think if I'm putting words in your mouth, let me know.
Okay.
I think for you kind of look at Sean McVay and say he's getting too much hype. and you feel like the label, the offensive genius, the guru. There's a part of you that feels like this guy's getting so much credit that other people could be getting, but he's kind of like the hot trendy thing right now, and that's why he's getting so much recognition and praise.
You nailed it. 100%. That's exactly what it is. And as much as I love Doug Peterson, I don't think his strongest suit is his offensive game plans. Like, if you're telling me Sean McVay can create you an offensive playbook and a game plan and Doug Peterson can, I think Sean McVay is better at that. But when it comes to the culture Doug Peterson brings and the will that these players have to play for him, and I'm not saying Sean McVay isn't good, but I think you nailed it. You hit it right on the head. He gets all the praise. And there's so many other coaches in this league like Doug Peterson who doesn't get the same credit as Sean McVay.
Well, I think what the difference is that I think Doug Peterson's a better head coach. I don't know if Doug's a better offensive play caller per se. And I think the numbers bear that out. The Eagles scored 6 less points per game in 2018 versus 2017. And I don't think that's just because of the quarterback. I don't think that's just because of the injuries. Guys were injured last year. I think it was also because Doug Peterson benefited from an incredibly elite staff in 16 and 17. Frank Reich, John DeFilippo, they both left after the Super Bowl. And what did you do? You didn't bring in new people. You promoted from within. What did they do? They elevated Mike Groh from wide receivers coach to offensive coordinator. They elevated Press Taylor from basically an offensive assistant to the new quarterback coach. So I think what we overlook is that what Doug is, he is a great players coach. The players buy into what he brings. They buy what he is selling. They believe in him. They follow him. He gets them on both sides of the ball. He doesn't have a players' council of those captains for no good reason. But I think you have to say, in all fairness, that McVay hasn't gone down 6 points in points per game from one year to the next. Doug Peterson has. So you can make the argument that Sean McVay may be more innovative as an offensive mind, but he's not a well-rounded, great head coach like Doug is.
That I can agree on. I can agree with that. It just comes down to the narrative of Sean McVay that he is the special new thing, and it's this new look. You want that young coach who will be there forever. It might just come with the physical look of it as well that bothers me. Realistically, it's all about the young coach and a good-looking guy who dates this female who's very attractive, and it's just a big part of the whole entire picture maybe that bothers me with Sean McVay.
I think it's a byproduct of media. Like your frustration with McVay feels like my frustration with Harden. The people who obsess like Harden is the greatest offensive player we've ever seen. And it's like, dude, do you not remember Kobe or Iverson or any of the other great players who've ever come before? Like, I don't like the recency bias, and I think that we have to have context. I feel like that's more your feeling with McVay. You don't hate McVay. It's just that you just think he gets way more hype and attention than he should.
That's fair. I think you nailed it because James Harden is the same exact way. You did say James Harden, right?
James Harden.
Okay. Make sure I'm not losing my mind over here.
609-403-0973. Bill in Absecon chimes in about our quarterback conversation. Says, you guys are right. It's a team game, football. There's too much emphasis on championship rings. I have Marino over Elway. I have Marino and Elway over Montana in their primes, as well as Manning over Brady, with each at their best. Now, that's an interesting conversation because Elway, it's hard to find Elway's prime for two reasons. One, because he had that string of seasons where he was throwing more interceptions than touchdowns. And also he got injured a couple times, which in what would, I guess, would be his prime. So it's hard to really measure Elway's prime. Now, if you want to say that if you swapped Marino and Montana, and you gave Montana Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, and all those weapons, that he would win championships, I'm totally on board with that. And I agree with you, Bill, if you want to say Marino is a better quarterback than Montana, just as a quarterback, I'm good with that. I think what you overlook with Montana, though, is that while he's not as physically gifted as Marino and Elway, I mean, Marino had the quick release, the pure arm talent. Marino could make every throw at any time in any place. And Elway was a freak athlete with a howitzer for an arm. I mean, it looked like he was throwing a 100-mile fastball sometimes. And he was way more athletic than Marino was. I mean, Elway was a baseball player too. So I think that, yes, they may be more physically gifted than Montana, but what Montana had was he was cool as the other side of the pillow, as Stuart Scott would say, rest in peace. Montana had ice water in his veins. And I think that there were times that Marino didn't in certain playoff games. And I think that Elway, he had a lot of clutch games. So it's hard to truly rate those two over Montana because Montana did put up great stats. He did win the championships. He had the great moments in the playoffs. But I do agree that if you're going purely on mano-a-mano quarterback, I would go Marino over Montana. What about you, Hunter?
I would go Marino over Montana as well. Because the skill set alone, individual talent, I have to go with Marino. I just think he was the all-around better quarterback at the end of the day.
It's hard for me to go Elway over Montana, though, because the number of seasons, and I got to count it again, the number of seasons that he had more interceptions than touchdowns, it just bothers me. And I feel like, look, he played with some really poor teams at Elway, and there's a reason why he didn't win a championship until the end, because he was dragging mediocre teams to the Super Bowl each and every year. But let me see here. He had let me do the count here. He had 3 seasons of more interceptions, touchdowns. 1 season with the same amount of touchdowns and interceptions. 4, there's a 4th one. There's 92, the year that I mentioned that is that really his prime? He's 32 years old. So is that really his prime? We don't know. Let's see here. You have, so overall, it's 4 seasons with more interceptions and touchdowns. I don't know if I can take that guy over Montana.
I can't either.
Not denying his greatness. Look, if you want to tell me Elway's one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time, I'm on board. But I don't know if I'm willing to be like Bill from Absecon and say that in his prime, Elway over Montana. I just don't know if I'm willing to make that step.
Well, the one thing you have to remember, when we have these discussions, all of these players are so talented and they're so good. The only way to make it different is nitpicking to an extreme. Like, obviously, these 3 players that we are discussing are very talented and they were phenomenal in their prime and realistically in their entire career. But to separate them from who's better, you're going to have to really look deeper. And when it comes down to it, Marino to me is number 1 and Elway might be at the bottom.
Yeah, and we're talking about talent. We're not talking about career. We're not talking about who is the overall better career. Because Montana, obviously, you can make the argument as the greatest quarterback of all time. We're talking about just pure talent, like in their prime. Like, who apex higher? Who hit the mountaintop at a higher peak? And that's why Nick from Brigantine chimes in at 609-403-0973. He says, no way. I think Montana is 1, Brady is 2, Marino is 3. I think most people would agree with that point. I think what Bill from Absecon was getting at, Nick from Brigantine, is that Bill was saying that, look, at their apex of talent, one guy is better than another. And I think that's why he said at their apex, Manning is better than Brady. Now, I don't agree with that only because of the fact that I think we overlook that Manning played with some elite players. He played with Hall of Fame receivers and borderline Hall of Fame running backs. Brady didn't always play with the best players. When he had Randy Moss, he put up Manning-like numbers. But he didn't always consistently do that because he didn't have the same level of talent. Let's not forget, in the past Super Bowl run, it was less about Brady winning the game as much as about the running game finally broke through at the end.
Yeah. No, you're right. This conversation, not that I'm trying to go into another direction with it, because I definitely enjoy it, but it made me think. It made me think about the quarterbacks in the league today, right now. And
which gets back to our original conversation with the quarterback tiers.
Yeah, right. It all comes in full circle at the end of the day. But I'm so intrigued with the young talent that's starting to bloom because you have guys like Tom Brady who, well, we really don't know, but it seems like eventually the end is going to come at some time soon. Drew Brees, same thing. Big Ben's getting older. Like
Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers, exactly. Now we're getting the Mahomes. Andrew Luck is still young, even though it seems like his name has been thrown around for a while. You have Baker Mayfield, who's an exciting guy to watch. Whether you're a fan or not, he moves the needle when it comes to entertainment.
Carson Wentz. Dak Prescott.
Exactly. These players, they're moving up. But one thing that I want to just throw at you real quickly here, because one of my buddies, big Detroit fan, huge Detroit fan, and he always has this conversation with me about Matt Stafford. And I think Matt Stafford, because he just plays on a team that's never really going to go anywhere, doesn't get enough recognition. Like, I don't think he's a bad quarterback whatsoever. He's actually, I feel like, almost underrated. What are your opinions on Matt Stafford? I think he's stuck in an organization that will never succeed, so that is going to hurt him.
Yeah, he's stuck in an organization that will never succeed. He's had some gaudy years. You know, a 5,000-yard passing season. He's had multiple seasons with 29 or more touchdowns. You know, he's a prolific passer. But there's a part of me that feels like Stafford is basically just a slightly better version of Drew Bledsoe. Big numbers, big-time passer, but he's not the elite of the elite.
He doesn't have the it factor. He has the stats to support him, but he doesn't have that it factor. That's how I supported my thought on him.
Yeah, and I feel like, look, you look at his overall numbers, 38,000 passing yards as a career, nothing to sneeze at. But guess what? You know the quarterbacks who have more passing yards than Joe Montana? I can name them for you. They're Dave Craig, they're Vane Testaverde, they're Drew Bledsoe. Am I really going to get a bit out of shape over passing yards? To me, the numbers that mean more than the passing yards are your touchdown to interception ratio, which Stafford is pretty good in that category. He's got a little more than 100 more touchdown to interceptions. And I think with Stafford, the thing that we overlook is that he has, as you said, a bad franchise. He has helped them have multiple winning seasons, 10-6. 11-5, 9-7, 9-7. So at least I think he's better than Bledsoe, for example. But I don't know if I'm not 100% sure he belongs in, for example, tier 2.
Okay. Well, here's the question I was thinking about. If he was the Eagles quarterback for 10 years, are you disappointed in his production as a player?
Yeah.
If you are.
A little bit.
Okay.
Because I think that we forget that Stafford was drafted number 1 overall.
Fair point. That is a fair point.
And there's been seasons, and I'll read them off for you. The 2 years he led the NFL on pass attempts. The 1 year he was 41-16. That's a great year, right? 5,000 passing yards. But you know what he did the next year? 20 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. And his completion percentage went down 4%. So he's inconsistent. And I think the inconsistency, if he was in a city like Philadelphia, would drive these fans insane.
Okay. I just think he gets underrated, but it's because of, the Lions are never going to win. So at the end of the day, it's not him. Because if he's on another team who succeeds, if he's in an organization and say he has Sean Payton as his head coach, things can be different and you can look at him differently. But because he's on a team that will never succeed, he kind of just gets passed by. I'm not a lover. I'm not a hater. I just think he gets looked over because of where he's playing.
609-403-0973 is the text. We'll get to more of your texts on the other side. Along with Hunter Brody, I'm Josh Hennig. We're filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash here on a Wednesday. Again, coming up in about 12 minutes from now, John McMullen or 97.3 ESPN.com.
Isn't it funny that just people showing up to the NovaCare complex gets us juiced up? They're not even doing anything today, but you know what? I put on the green shirt, which you don't apparently own one. I put on the Eagles hat today just because I knew that they were meeting. It wasn't even about having a practice. That's what Eagles football does in this city. It's wild.
Hey, look, nobody texted in and complained about me not wearing and not owning any Eagles green.
That's actually ridiculous, though. It doesn't even make sense.
I just don't wear green.
What do you mean? Anything green, you just won't wear it?
It's not my thing. Black's my favorite color, and then usually I go red, gray.
But as an Eagles fan, you're telling me there's not one article of clothing where it's a Carson Wentz T-shirt, Eagles T-shirt, something.
My favorite Eagles type shirt is, so thanks to me working here at 97.3 ESPN, I got one of the shirts we made a couple years ago, which had the phrase, "We're all we got, we all we need," 97.3 Eagles Radio Network shirt. That's like my Eagles shirt.
Is it green?
It's got green lettering. It's a black shirt.
Oh, man. Well, let's get to John McMullen. This is firing me up here. So a couple things that stood out to me.
By the way, 609-403-0973, whether you agree or disagree with Hunter's frustration with me about my lack of Eagles green in my wardrobe.
One thing that stood out to me was the fact that there's been no holdouts under Doug Peterson. And you have the Malcolm Jenkins thing where he's obviously not happy with his contract, but just the way that it has been handled by both parts of the organization, by both sides, it says a lot. We understand Malcolm Jenkins wants a raise. We understand he wants a new contract. But it's not a Zeke Elliott type situation where I'm not showing up, I'm not going to be there. There's conversation between the two parties. There's an understanding, and Malcolm Jenkins is in the building and showing the team commitment. It's just a different level of respect between the two parties, in my opinion. So it says a lot, and it kind of goes back to our conversation of Doug Peterson and Sean McVay when it comes to the culture that is being built within the Eagles organization, especially with Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman. And it says a lot. I actually read an article about Doug Peterson, and it kind of broke down what kind of person he was, and it talks about the power of NFL coaches. All the coaches in today's game, they want all the power. They want to be the GM and the head coach. They want to make the personnel decisions and be the head coach and bring them to the promised land and win the Super Bowl trophy, and it all be about how they manage to make it happen. But with Doug Peterson, he comes out and states, listen, I have a job to do. I have a job to be the best head coach that I can be, make the play calls happen, make sure everyone's on the same page. But when it comes to personnel decisions, I trust Howie Roseman to get it done. So just all around, that holdout and everything around the Eagles organization is just A+.
Yeah, I think we don't, because we're so focused on everything else around the Eagles, we don't bring up the fact that what makes the Eagles different than everybody else. And like I said to John, look, I think it's a compliment to the Eagles and the Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and the Doug Peterson, the fact that players are there. Players are showing up. It's not like nobody's not there. And I think that when you are an organization that's, and I'm not saying this to be negative about other organizations, but to be realistic. The Rams have had multiple holdouts in the last few years. Melvin Gordon's holding out right now for the Chargers. Remember, a few years ago, it was Joey Bosa holding out before his rookie season with the Chargers. His brother Nick is holding out with the 49ers right now, by the way. There's players every year. Trent Williams is holding out with the Redskins. Every year there's dudes who are holding out. And like I said, I think that there's a point where you have to compliment the Eagles because they don't have that type of unrest in their organization. And, you know, for the Eagles to not have holdouts, I can't even remember the last time they had a holdout. I mean, it had to be the Andy Reid era. I don't really remember it ever happening during Chip Kelly. He got rid of all what he called the bad apples. Remember, he purged the roster of all of the guys who didn't agree with him. So it could have been the Chip Kelly era. So the fact to me that the Eagles are one of the few organizations that has no holdouts, to me, is a huge deal, and I don't think we appreciate the Eagles enough for it.
It's kind of funny because I remember when Doug Peterson got hired, and we all had the same question. Who? Doug Peterson? And then he goes 7-9 the first year. Who would have thought in a million years this is where we would be? Doug Peterson has to be one of my favorite coaches ever, and it has to do with the fact that he is a leader of men. Really, it is so hard to have everyone back you up and respect you to that degree. He has nailed that part of it. I know people always laugh when they hear athletes or ex-athletes relate their playing time to the NFL days, but I've played a lot of hockey in my career, and I've dealt with coaches that were tough to play for. I played for coaches that did not have control of the locker room, and I played for coaches that was essentially compared to Doug Peterson, where everyone bought in and everyone loved going that extra inch for that head coach. And I just have to respect the man. Doug Peterson is on another level, and I'm super excited for his tenure here, because I think he's going to motivate this roster moving forward to great places.
Again, the text board is open at 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Josh Hennig along with Hunter Brody filling in for Mike Gill on a Wednesday hump day. 609-403-0973. By the way, about the green, texter chimed in and said, "You should be ashamed, LOL." That's from Chris.
You should be. You're an Eagles fan. Like, you should have something. Something. It kind of blows my mind.
But why would I have something if I'm not going to wear it?
But why wouldn't you support your fandom?
I'm a hat guy. You get me an Eagles hat, I'll wear it.
I'm going to get you a green Eagles hat. So you can wear it with your red shirt.
I prefer black, but okay.
No, I will. That is the point. I'm not going to get you a black Eagles attire here. It needs to be the green.
Now, another texter says about the green point, don't feel bad. The Eagles green is actually an ugly green, hence why more people own black and white jerseys than green jerseys.
I don't get the white because when I'm at the game and I take a bite of that cheesesteak, I got the cheese whiz dripping onto the white shirt, or I got the beer spilling on me. Now I look a mess.
I mean, I think the texture's a little harsh saying it's an ugly green.
It's not. It's not an ugly green.
But see, I'm a black guy. You give me a black jersey, I'm cool. Like I love the blackouts. I loved it when Dawkins would come out like the Wolverine with the black jersey. If you give me a black Eagles shirt, I'm gonna wear that. I was a fan. I know other people weren't, but I was a fan of the Iverson black Sixers jerseys back in the day. Like, to me, black is edgy. It's cool. It's just my thing. So to me, I've just never thought of, I'm going to buy a green shirt. I'm going to buy an Eagles green shirt. Like, it just never appealed to me. It never was a moment in my mind where I thought of it. That's all.
I respect it, but I don't agree with it. But something that, let's go to agreeing with John McMullen. One of the things he was talking about was the running back core. And he mentioned Corey Clement not being a lock to make the team. Now, he also stated that it seems like he will make the team, but it's not a lock. And it's crazy to think about, because for me, as I look at this staff, and I know we bring Darren Sproles back, so the question was, well, who's not going to make it? Because obviously if Sproles comes in, he's going to be there. Is it going to be Smallwood? Is it going to be Josh Adams? I never thought in a million years that Corey Clement could be the one who actually doesn't make the roster. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was surprised too. I've always worked under the assumption that Corey Clement would make it, one, because he showed in 2017 how versatile he is. People forget, the Super Bowl champion Eagles team, the guy who led the team in rushing touchdowns was Corey Clement. Not Jay Ajayi, not LeGarrette Blount, Corey Clement. Corey Clement had 100 receiving yards in the Super Bowl. Those are things that who else can say that? What other Eagles player can say that? So to me, I feel like Corey Clement, his versatility is invaluable. So for me to hear that there's an outside chance that he might not make the roster, to me is blowing my mind. But like John said, he expects him still to make it. He said that the guaranteed guys are Sproles, Miles Sanders, and Darren Sproles. So I'm gonna make the assumption that Corey Clement's gonna make it too. And that's where John said, look, Josh Adams is gonna make this team because they need him long term. They need him in a couple of years when Jordan Howard is no longer here. And remember, that was what they said about Corey Clement a couple of years ago. Well, we need Corey Clement because in a couple of years, LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi won't be here. So it's interesting how the whole situation ebb and flows with the Eagles running back position. Because at the end of the day, the Eagles like to have a lot of running backs.
Yeah, I do think Josh Adams is a better touch than Smallwood. We've been trying this Smallwood thing for a couple of years now, and I know his role is very minor, and last year he played probably a bigger role than we would have wanted him to due to the fact that we really didn't have that much of a powerful running game, but I'm okay with Smallwood going and keeping someone like Josh Adams, because we saw, even though I don't expect big things out of Josh Adams, when we yelled at Doug Peterson to actually run the football, there were games where he was hitting the gaps and hitting the outside and he was shooting up the middle, and we were pumped and thrilled because he was making it happen. Now, in very limited time, maybe he can make those little explosive plays happen here and there, and it can be very productive for this ball team.
609-403-0973. One more comment on the green shirt conversation. Tom from the Village chimes in and says, I wear a green shirt 5 days a week for work. Now, that's interesting. On game day, it's either black or white unless I break out the Randall Cunningham jersey.
I love how far this conversation has gone, by the way. That's fantastic.
So now Tom has a job that requires him to wear green. So maybe there's a part of him as an Eagles fan that says, yo, man, I'm a little tired of seeing green.
Well, time out. Did he clarify that he has to wear the shirt?
He says, I wear a green shirt for work.
Oh, for work. Okay, so
his job requires him to wear a green shirt. So maybe there's a part of him that says, I'm going to go white or black jersey because I'm tired of wearing green.
Now, would you work there if they paid well?
It depends what they pay.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm just making sure that you would choose money over wearing the green shirt, because apparently you're unhappy with the color.
Look, I have had jobs where I have had to wear attire that is not exactly fashionable.
Okay, that's fair.
You know, like I worked at CVS, but when I worked at CVS, this was back in the day. This is before like working at CVS had like the cool the cool polos, right? You go into CVS, they're all wearing the polo shirts, right? But back in the day when you worked at CVS, I mean this is back in the day. We're talking about like a while ago. Just to date myself here a little bit. You know, you used to wear the red vest. The CVS red vest on top of the button-down white short sleeve shirt. So you couldn't even wear the long sleeve white dress shirt. You had to wear the short sleeve white dress shirt with the vest, the CVS vest, and then your name tag goes on the vest.
I feel like Maze and Aton right now, getting a little derailed. What do you think?
I don't care. So that was totally unfashionable. And then when I was a lifeguard at the water park for a few years, that outfit was not. It was only flattering because I was in shape, not because it was fashionable. You know, the red shorts with the lifeguard shirt is nowhere in the fashion vocabulary. So I am well versed in the you must wear it to get paid. Also, I have dressed up as characters during Christmas parades. So I've been the guy in costumes for Christmas parades. So,
where is this going right now? This is unbelievable. Oh, man, that's great. That's great. We have some Phillies texts coming in. You want to take control of this show before we get too crazy?
And then we'll get it back. We'll get it back to the Eagles coming up next here on the Sports Bash, along with Hunter Brody, who's laughing hysterically. I'm Josh Hennig. We're all filling in for Mike Gell here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN.com, and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. I did promise we'd get to the Ben Simmons jumper because you and I have not been on air together since the video came out. Okay, you know, we were filling in for the Sports Bash on Friday with Deshaun, and then you and I were chatting on Saturday on Sports Bash Saturday. But since then, the video has come out, and I think we've all seen it by now. Ben Simmons going up and down the court, shooting fadeaways, shooting pull-up jumpers, and to me, the Ben Simmons jump shot video is the equivalent of a movie trailer. Preview approved for all audiences, and it's just highlights. In a movie trailer, you never get the full brevity of the movie. You never get the full story. You never get the entire everything. You only get the highlights. You only get the good stuff. So to me, your belief in a Ben Simmons video is the equivalent of you're willing to believe that if you see a good movie trailer, that the movie's always going to be great. Because I guarantee you that we've all seen movie trailers that we thought the movie was going to be good and the movie was garbage. All right? We've all seen it. And we've also seen movie trailers that were okay and the movie was better than the trailer. So we've seen both. To me, a highlight reel of Ben Simmons' jumper is as valuable as a movie trailer. You can't take it on face value. You have to take it with some measure, because at the end of the day, Ben Simmons making a jump shot on a video can be doctored. How many misses did he have in that scrimmage versus how many makes? Same thing with a movie trailer. They may have all these bing, bang, boom action sequences, but then when you go watch the movie, it can have the worst dialogue ever. Like, if you ever watched any of the abominations that were the Fantastic Four movies by Fox, the trailers were impressive. I mean, the special effects and the action, but the dialogue was as good as toilet paper. I mean, it was only good for one thing. I don't put a lot of value into a Ben Simmons jump shot video, because to me, it's the same thing as a movie trailer. It's only the highlights.
I see it as, I'm intrigued by it, but I understand that there were probably a bunch of misses, maybe some ugly ones involved as well. But I do like the fact that he was willing to get to spots and actually elevate with form to take a jump shot. I don't expect Ben Simmons, because I saw this video, my mind doesn't go to the fact that Ben Simmons next year is going to be pulling up every time he gets the chance and taking all these insane jump shots. You would be ridiculous to think that that's how this is going to be moving forward based off of a 1-minute video online. But he does get to where he wants to be, and he is legitimately taking a jump shot, and you can't look at the form, because the form is never going to be there. It's going to be an ugly form. His elbow's going to be sticking out, but it's not about that. It's about making it work for him, and the fact that he was getting to where he wanted to, shooting off the dribble, the third shot in that video, and yes, I know it's the third shot because I've watched the video 7,000 times. He's coming off the dribble. He's moving left. He's turning his body. He releases. I am intrigued by at least seeing him do that. And the fact that it's a pickup game, everyone wants to make fun of it. Who cares? As long as he does it in the NBA games, that's all that matters. You're right. But this is step one. And you should at least understand that Ben Simmons is working on his craft.
Well, I mean, a movie trailer is step one, too. I mean, that's the first stage of getting you there.
Does this disappoint you, though, to see this?
There's a level of indifference for me. Because when I look at Ben Simmons in that video, I see a dude who's playing pickup basketball. At the end of the day, until he does it in a game, I'm not going to attribute that to his skill set. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you're good at it. And just because you can do something doesn't mean that when push comes to shove, in the heat of the moment, when you have to do something to help your team be successful, just like in any job. You know, if you have a crisis at work, right? No matter how much training and instruction, you either can or you can't. You either can hit that switch to save the day for your job, or you can't. And it's the same thing with Ben Simmons. Being able to do something outside of the element of the pressure is not the same as being able to do it under pressure.
If we saw a video of Ben Simmons playing pickup basketball and it has 7 drives to the lane and 4 slam dunks and a couple passes, would you be devastated that you didn't see any jump shots?
I wouldn't say I'm devastated, but I would say that I'm disappointed.
Okay. Well, think of that alternative.
Because the movie trailer preview told me that here comes the jump shot.
But see, that's what you can't think, that because you see this video that automatically Ben Simmons is going to be knocking down these shots at will. It's just about the fact that he understands where the flaw is in his game, and even though it's a summer pickup game and he's out there in the gym just playing with random dudes, some of them being guys who play in the NBA. I believe one of them was Andrew Wiggins.
One of them was Andrew Wiggins,
yes.
That's correct.
So you need to realize that he is going out there playing 5-on-5 basketball with guys who can hang around, whether they're playing tight defense or not. He's working on shooting in game-like situations, and that's putting himself in the right spot to be successful this season.
Again, I don't disagree with that, but I feel like I trust Ben Simmons' video of jump shots as much as I trust a movie trailer. It's just where I stand. To me, it's one and the same. You're giving me the highlights. You're giving me the the good stuff. You're doing what it takes to entice me to be there opening night, to put my eyeballs on the screen opening night. Be there for the first pregame. Season the pregame. If Ben Simmons isn't shooting jump shots in the preseason, I'm already feeling like I was let down.
I think you're going to see a Ben Simmons taking jumpers.
And I do too. And I'm not doubting that. And I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying that the video just is creating more hype. If Ben Simmons goes out there and does the same thing he's been doing the last 2 years, which is drive, dunk, baby hook, free throw shots, 60%, I'm going to say that the whole hype video was a fraud. But I also, like you, agree that I don't think he's always going to be the dude who doesn't shoot jump shots. I just think it's impossible to put in as much work as a basketball player does during the offseason or whatever sport you play. A pitcher with baseball, a hockey player with his slap shot, a football player at running routes, let's say, perfecting his route running. Whatever the situation is, you don't put in all that work to not do it. So I do think the jumper is coming. I'm just saying that I feel like we forget that it is a highlight reel. That's all.
And that's realistic. It is realistic to think that is just a couple good shots in a row, and they probably played basketball for 1 or 2 hours, and he missed maybe 50 or 60 shots that were hideous that nobody's ever going to see. So you need to know that when you're watching that video. But I just think that Ben Simmons is putting himself in a position, understanding that he hears the noise, understanding that he doesn't shoot. He sees teams disrespect him year after year after year when they're playing defense against him. At some point, with his skill set and his knowledge of the game, he understands that the biggest flaw in the world is very big, and if he doesn't fix it, he's not going to be as successful as he can be. So this season, the next season, the year after that, you are going to see his shot get better and get better. And this is the year where I'm going in with hope that you will see an adjustment and you will at least see willingness to shoot. Whether that's knocking them down or not, you will see the willingness to shoot with Ben Simmons this season.
609-403-0973 is the text board again in the conversation. He's Hunter Brody. I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill here on a Wednesday, 609-403-0973. By the way, Glenn from EHT followed up again and said, I'm a huge Steelers fan. I hate the Bumblebee uniform too, with an exclamation point. He says, if I'm not mistaken, they discontinued the use of that uniform. Thank God.
It wasn't as ugly as the blue and yellow Birds jerseys.
Yeah, those are pretty bad too.
It just didn't even
make
sense.
And so are those weird Packers jerseys.
The brown, is it brown and yellow? Is that what it is? Yeah, those didn't make much sense. You would think, I mean, listen, back in the day, I guess, when they rocked those, it's kind of going back in time, kind of like what the Carolina, even though we're switching here to hockey, the Carolina Hurricanes went back and did the good old Hartford Whalers jerseys at one time this year. And it was actually interesting because one of the players wore a number that was retired by the Whalers, but he still wore it in that game, so there was some controversy around that. Very interesting. I don't know how we got to that, but...
Oh, well, we're just all over the place today. By the way, Scott Lauber just reported about the Phillies. So what the information that ESPN.com had has been changed. The Phillies have announced that now Arrieta will start Friday instead of Saturday. Eflin will pitch Saturday instead of Friday. And Aaron Nola has been moved up to Sunday.
So
and
that's
that
what we
Smiley
thought
will be Monday.
Now that makes sense to me. You gotta have Aaron Nola pitch.
But I
against
think it's
the
funny
Braves.
they didn't move not just one but two guys up. They moved both Arrieta and Nola up a day.
Well, wait, what was the alternative? What was the other one?
Arrieta was projected to pitch Saturday.
Okay, so now he's going Friday. Well, maybe because... Well, who was pitching Friday? Was it Eflin?
Eflin. Now, Eflin's been moved to Saturday.
Maybe they didn't want the first game of the series to be Eflin because he's been struggling a lot lately.
Right.
So you're giving Arrieta, who magically is pitching better with the bone spur than he was before we found out about the bone spur.
And it's interesting because you look at who the matchups are now. So now you have Arrieta versus Soroka. And Soroka is arguably their best pitcher right now. So now you're going game one, basically our number two pitchers versus arguably their number one. And then you have Eflin in game two versus Gausman. And Gausman, as you know, has an over 5 ERA. So at least there's a little bit more forgive if Eflin does give up a few runs. And now you have Nola on Sunday. I wouldn't say Max Fried is one of their best pitchers, but he's a solid pitcher.
Capable of winning a baseball game. He puts you in a good position to win a game.
He's 10-4 with a 4 ERA, so it's not like he's a total loser. But what you're doing is you're closing out the series with your best pitcher. So the Phillies did make that change. According to Scott Lauber, it's going to be Arrieta Friday, Eflin Saturday, Nola Sunday, off day on Thursday. So some little update on the Phillies news front there.
Interesting week for the Phils. I mean, you have off on Monday. You play this 2-game set against Detroit. Segura's nursing that heel injury. Bryce Harper doesn't play. JT's playing first base. You take care of business. You have an off day on Thursday. Just a weird week, but I'll take it because I know this team has been through a lot of mental stress lately, not winning as many baseball games as they wanted to and not where they want to be at right now, even though they're putting together a 3-game stretch here of winning baseball. But I'm cool with it. I think they need their bodies to relax, maybe a little bit of a mental break as well. 2 off days in this week before they attack the Braves, and this is a much-needed series win.
By the way, at 609-403-0973, Matt in Delaware chimed in. He wants credit for the calling that the Phillies should move Nola up.
Well, credit to him.
Now, let's go back and read what Matt said, because Matt texted in at 4:45 p.m. Part of what he said is, we need Nola to pitch one of these games against the Braves. Push somebody's start back. So does that count as him calling it?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. He put it out there like, we need to have our starter pitch. Like, we need Aaron Nola to pitch. So he's bringing it up that, yeah, I mean, it needs to happen. He didn't say it will happen, though. That's calling it, right?
Right. So I don't know if we can say he predicted it, but I think we can say Matt in Delaware deserves credit for being the first to say among us today that Nola needs to be in the series.
Okay, smart man.
But I think you're second, because you're the second person to say it today.
Right.
I didn't say it at all.
Well, that's because we're more knowledgeable, Josh.
Is that what it is?
No, not at all. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that.
609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973. Along with Hunter Brody, I'm Josh Hennig, filling in for Mike Gill on a Wednesday. Also, one of the things we touched on earlier in the show was the quarterback tiers. And I think we came to the consensus that the problem with the tier system is that they're doing a little bit too much based on resume instead of on who is the best right now. And that's why I went Roethlisberger in tier 2. I just don't think he is a tier 1 quarterback anymore. I'm not saying he can't win a playoff game and lead you to a conference chain. We're not saying that. Look, being in the same category as Matt Ryan and Jared Goff, I think it's fine, because I think Roethlisberger has regressed. I don't like the fact that sometimes when we evaluate athletes, we're judging them on the wrong reasons. And I think that's my biggest problem. I personally wouldn't have Dak Prescott in tier 3, but I get it. We're going to review more of the whole list.
No, you go in tier
segment.
2 for Dak Prescott.
I would go bottom of tier 2.
Wow. But you don't want Goff in tier 2? So you would go Dak Prescott?
No. I would leave Goff in tier 2.
Okay. I thought you had him at 3 at one point.
No. I was saying that if it wasn't for Sean McVay, Goff would be a tier 3 quarterback. I think that Goff is only a tier 2 quarterback because he's got McVay in his ear telling him what to do.
If you're starting a franchise today, Jared Goff or Dak Prescott?
Dak Prescott.
Really?
Because Dak Prescott, for better or for worse, is a see-it-and-throw-it quarterback. He has no anticipation skills.
A better Alex Smith is what you're saying?
If you want to make that comparison, sure. The reason why I take Dak over Jared is because he's a see-it-and-throw-it quarterback. There's that part of him that he's not going to make the mistakes of anticipation thrower. Goff has to anticipate a little bit. If you watch him close enough, you realize there's so many times that he is not throwing to an open guy, he's throwing to a spot. And when you throw to the wrong spot, that's where a lot of interceptions happen. And I think that also Dak is a quarterback who is not as turnover prone as a guy who may be more willing to sling it. Now, Dak sometimes holds the ball too long. He's a little too slow on the release, and that can cause you to get sacked. But you got to have a debate. What's more valuable? Having a guy who doesn't throw the interception and get sacked, or the guy who is not going to get sacked but might throw more interceptions? Which is more valuable?
I have to look at those two players, and I would have to think if I'm starting that franchise, I got to go with Goff. I just think the upside is there, but because I think his attributes are better, his all around skills are better, his arm is better.
Is the upside there because of his ability as a thrower, or his ability to process information at the snap?
I think both. And all around, if you're looking 10 years down the road, like you're looking to build an organization around the two, I think the upside for Jared Goff is a little bit higher than Dak Prescott.
So you believe that Goff has a higher football potential aptitude?
Yes.
Than Dak?
Yeah, I do.
See, I believe that Goff's ceiling is not as high as someone like you says. Because I feel like when I watched him at Cal, and now that I watch him in the NFL, a lot of his success is purely dependent on who's around him. And if I'm a quarterback who's dependent on what's around me, I'm going to take the guy who's less likely to throw the interception, and that's Dak. Because I feel like turnovers are killers in the NFL, especially for a quarterback who has potentially some limitations. I think that part of Goff's success is because he's had coordinators and coaches telling him what to do.
Yeah, because he isn't the best at adjusting on the fly. He's got the whole helmet thing, and you saw once Sean McVay couldn't get to him, he was a little lost out there with making plays happen. But still, as much as I respect Dak Prescott and as much as I actually defended him on air today, I would still lean towards, in a 10-year window, I think I can find a way to get more out of Jared Goff. Because you know what? If he does struggle a little bit with those adjustments, who says 5 years down the road he can't find his rhythm and make that happen to be a better quarterback?
One texter, anonymous, no name, says, turnovers don't always translate to points. Got to take Goff over Dak. But again, I will say this again and again. How much of Goff's production is a byproduct of the offense that he's in? There's really no yes or no answer to it. It's just I'm putting the question out there. And I know that, Hunter says he'll go Goff over Dak. I know for me, I'll go Dak over Goff. And again, maybe I'm factoring too much of their college career into this. So if I'm wrong in that, that's my fault. But I saw Dak lead Mississippi State with a bunch of nobodies.
Yeah, you can't do college. But go ahead, finish your point.
No, I feel like, well, look, I can say about Wentz in college.
Two different games,
What sold me on Wentz as the Eagles pick was what I saw from him from college. And to me, what makes a good NFL quarterback starts in college. And I saw Goff struggle at times in college, and he still struggles that same way in the NFL.
During the draft, you can look at college as a way to look at these prospects and see what they are made of. But after 2-3 years in the NFL, I think you can strictly only go through the NFL film.
But don't you think if a guy makes the same mistakes in college as the NFL, that is something indicative of them?
Yes, but I also think no one just hops in the league and does what Pat Mahomes did last year and then has that for a 10-year, 15-year career, right? So there's going to be growing pains. And if after 4, 5, 6 seasons they are making the same mistakes over and over and over again, then sure, yes, I think that is a problem on that specific player.
609-403-0973, another anonymous texter chimes in and says, I think what's more valuable for a quarterback is not always getting injured like Wentz. Now, let's remind people, we had this conversation earlier. Who are the quarterbacks who don't get injured? Tom Brady, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning.
Yeah, Eli Manning is one of them.
Okay, so you have and Drew Brees. So you have 4 quarterbacks, who I just named. 3 of them are Hall of Famers. One of them is a dude that most people don't want on their team, right? Okay, let me name you another guy who's been injured in his career, who has affected his ability to remain a starting quarterback. Nick Foles. Remember, before the Eagles traded him, wasn't there a back and forth between Nick Foles and Michael Vick? Part of that was because Nick Foles got injured. Okay, so, you don't want quarterbacks to get injured like Wentz. Well, you know who else gets injured often? Aaron Rodgers, league MVP, Super Bowl champion. Ben Roethlisberger, Super Bowl champion multiple times. He's been multiple times a candidate for league MVP. I think that we forget also Cam Newton's been injured a few times. He's been a league MVP. I think the quarterback who gets injured is less about being injury prone than it is the fact that certain styles of play put you in a position to be injured.
The only difference I'll say about the Aaron Rodgers thing is he does get banged up, but I've never seen an NFL quarterback play through the obnoxious injuries. Like, he will have one leg, 3 toes, a half a shoulder, no torso, and somehow he's out there running 20 yards and sliding on his, you know what I mean? Like, Aaron Rodgers, as much as he gets banged up, he still finds a way to get out there for his team. And that's not a knock on any other quarterback that gets banged up, but
no,
it's
it's not.
It says a lot about Aaron Rodgers and his insane competitive nature.
But to turn around and look at Ben Roethlisberger and realize that he has missed about 12% of his NFL games, and that Rodgers has missed 20% of his NFL starts. Being an injured quarterback doesn't prevent you from being a great quarterback. I think we all can agree Roethlisberger's going to the Hall of Fame, right?
Yes, I would say so.
Right. So, being injured a few times, and look, Roethlisberger didn't miss huge chunks of games like Wentz did. I think the least number of games Roethlisberger's ever started was, 11, I think. So it's not like he's missing huge chunks of the season. But guess what? In 2017, Wentz played 13 games? He's still playing the majority of the season. Last year, he played 11 games? He's still playing the majority of the season. I think that this idea that Wentz is an oft-injured quarterback is a little over-talked. He did play 16 games his rookie season.
Yeah. Do you want to go through the tiers here of the quarterbacks, the tier 1 at least? Do you want to go over the tier 1 effect?
I want to get these couple texts in real quick because I want to make sure we get the listeners our opportunity to join the conversation at 609-403. Maybe we save the tiers for 5 questions and bang that out.
Perfect.
Glenn from EHC, who's a Steelers fan, chimes in and says, Josh, you say Big Ben has regressed. He completed 67% of his passes last year, threw for over 5,000 yards. He had 34 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. He definitely threw too many picks, and the team didn't make the playoffs, and that hurt. But I wouldn't say he's regressed. He's still playing at a high level. See, I think your definition of regression is different than mine. I think that's the problem. Because Ben was never a big-time interceptions guy at his peak. When Ben had the seasons that he has had, when he has been one of the best in the NFL, doing what he has, being a 6-time Pro Bowler, think about it this way. In 2014, which I would consider Ben at his peak, 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. At 32 years old, at 36 years old, he threw 60 interceptions, led the NFL. I understand what you're saying, Glenn. It's a lot of yards. That's a lot of touchdowns. But to me, the regression is not specifically in the stats. It's in the fact that, let's be realistic, if it wasn't for a great running game in James Conner, one of the 5 best offensive lines in the NFL, and for Juju Smith-Schuster and Antonio Brown, you could argue that does Ben put up those stats at last year? And Ben had to throw a league-leading 675 times to get those 5,000 yards and 34 touchdowns. So it's not like he's the most efficient guy in the world.
I don't think it's fair to use that against him that he had those weapons.
Okay.
Because if you put anyone in a better position, they're going to do better than if they were in L.A. with Jeff Fisher. So, yeah, he did have those weapons, but to use that against him, I don't know if that's fair. And that's for any quarterback, and that's for any person in any sport, any athlete. To use his teammates are good against those players, I don't know if that's an argument that I like, at least. I know it's used. I don't know if I can go that direction.
609-403-0973. A couple more texts before we hit the break. Here's an interesting point, and I want your thoughts on this, Hunter. Texter says, Giannis Antetokounmpo doesn't have Embiid under the basket to grab rebounds. That's why people let Giannis shoot threes.
So he's saying if they will allow Ben Simmons to shoot, or they won't allow him to shoot because Embiid will get the rebound? I'm confused.
That's the theory I think the texture's going with.
Okay. I don't know if I can necessarily go with that either, because when it comes down to it, when you're allowing a guy to shoot wide open, no one's thinking, okay, who's under the basket? It's more about that specific person making the shot or not. Am I right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
I think it's a fair assessment. I think that letting Giannis shoot had less to do with having a great rebounder as much as the fact that he's just not a good shooter.
Yes, that's exactly where I'm going with. It's more about the individual shooting the ball more than it is who's underneath the basket to grab a rebound if they miss.
609-403-0973. Tyler chimes in and says, both Goff and Dak have good offensive weapons, but Goff made it to a Super Bowl, so I'll take Goff over Dak. But again, how much of it was Goff and how much of it was the coach? I think we all can agree that Sean McVay is a better coach than Jason Garrett.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, so
I can agree
look,
with that.
I think that, again, I ask you, if you put Dak and Goff and you swap them, is Goff getting to a Super Bowl with the Cowboys?
No, but I don't think he's getting to the Super Bowl with the Rams either. I don't think they were they wouldn't be in the Super Bowl last year flip-flopping those two quarterbacks.
So you're going to say that neither quarterback makes it if they swap places?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like the Cowboys go to the championship game if Jared Goff was in the mix. No, I wouldn't go that way either. If they flip-flopped, neither of those teams are making the Super Bowl.
609-403-0973. One more text before we hit the break here. A texter chimes in and says, imagine if Brady or any quarterback could hit somebody while running like Cam Newton, suggesting that, maybe Cam gets injured because he takes contact. Brady and Rodgers are the only two quarterbacks who had the rules changed for them. They are protected by the league. It doesn't explain why Rodgers gets injured so much.
I think he's trying to say that they allow Cam Newton to get hit harder than those quarterbacks.
Okay. Again, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, Brady plays in a pretty poor division with some mediocre defenses at times. Outside of the Jets in the late 2000s, the Bills off and on in years, and I mean, Jason Taylor was last time in Miami, 2006? It's not like Brady's always playing great pass rushers and great defenses, whereas, Cam has to deal with, Tampa Bay's has some great defensive lines over the years. Remember, Gerald McCoy was there for years. Now it's Ndamukong Suh down there. You look at the Saints, they got Cam Jordan coming around the edge. You could argue that Cam has had to deal with better defenses in his division than Brady, so maybe that has something to do with the hits.
As great as the Patriots run has been, and it has been one of the most iconic runs in sports history, you do need to look at that division and say there hasn't been one team even close to relatively giving them any sort of legit threat in that division. Imagine, and I know it doesn't make sense because of where they're from, but imagine the Kansas City Chiefs going up against Tom Brady in the same division every year. Well, it's totally different getting to the AFC Championship game every year. So I respect them, and they made it happen. I am not knocking that. But that division has been so poor throughout this run that it does go into the equation of the Patriots dynasty being so successful.
Roman Quinn hit a home run.
and you know what's funny? We want to go get that pitcher. What does that say?
I'm not sure what to do with that because this was the series that we were all supposed to walk into, right? And be like, well, there are two guys that the Phillies might be interested in to trade for, and they both played yesterday. We got to see both of them, Shane Green, the closer, and Matthew Boyd, the starter. And I ask you, Hunter, and I mean this with all sincerity, and the texters can text in as well at 609-403-0973. Matthew Boyd, 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, 2 earned runs. Shane Green went 1 inning, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 1 strikeout. After last night, is there any part of you that has any interest at all in acquiring those guys to help the Phillies?
I am definitely interested, but I will say this. With where the Phillies are in relation to the rest of the league and what it will take to get these players, I think we can go in a different direction. Because there's possibilities out there to go out and get other players where you don't have to package up as many prospects as it will to take on a Matt Boyd. For example, I know it's a big name and his production might not be as great as it once was, but someone like Greinke is a lot of money and not so much giving up prospects, and it helps.
I'm so against the Greinke thing.
But do you realize what we're throwing out there every day besides Aaron Nola?
It doesn't matter. Here's the problem with Greinke. Greinke had that long ESPN, what was it, E60 or ESPN, the magazine, whatever it was, several years ago when he was with the Royals. And he talked about the fact that he has anxiety issues and that he doesn't have an interest in playing in certain cities because of the fact that he's concerned that he may not be able to handle the stress because of his personal problems. And, I don't want to ever put somebody in a position where they may have to compromise their own mental sanity or health just because we want a pitcher.
Well, that's fair, but he has a no-trade clause, so it comes down to him accepting that first off.
Yes. I think that Boyd is a guy who someone's going to overpay for him.
Big time.
In the trade market. And I think that if you're the Phillies, the guy who I'm most interested in would be either Robbie Ray or Marcus Stroman. Because these are two guys who are going to be less expensive than a Boyd. Less expensive than a Mike Minor. I think Mike Minor is going to get a stupid haul for the Texas Rangers. You're going to see something ridiculous because he's left-handed. And there's no Mad Bum on the market anymore. So I think that that's going to happen as well. Robbie Ray's a guy who's left-handed. He gets strikeouts. And I think the Phillies need somebody like that. And also you have Marcus Stroman. Stroman doesn't have a lot of strikeouts, but he's a ground ball pitcher.
Right.
And he's a guy who's very, very concise. He doesn't waste a lot of energy. He doesn't waste a lot of pitches usually. So I think that if what Matt Klentak said, we're not going to sell the farm, him and Andy McPhail are so bent on not selling the farm, fine. Then those are two pitchers that make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I can agree completely with that. Where I am with the Phillies is just get better and do it smart. And what I mean by that is don't go out there and get someone who's a rental for the rest of the season. And I don't think they're going to do that. There's about 5 pitchers on the list that make a lot of sense for this team, from Greinke, Minor, Robbie Ray, and Stroman, and we named them, and Boyd. Those players make sense. Just acquire someone to help this ball club now and for the short future as well, and I'll be a happy Phillies fan.
609-403-0973 is text, but again, the Phillies tied 0-0 in the third inning. So if anything does happen, we'll let you know. But nothing so far has really happened this game. By the way, a little Phillies news happened before the game. Brad Miller has been placed on the injured list because everybody else is on there, and Sean Rodriguez has been activated. So another body part bites the dust for the Phillies.
It was probably from that throw last night. Did you see that from left field? Are you kidding me?
The Chuck.
JT with the tag. That was outstanding. I woke up the dog. I was freaking out so much in my living room.
I feel like last night's game is the encapsulation of this season. The fact that the Phillies had to go to extra innings to win that game.
I was so bothered.
Is just so apropos for this season. Like, this is one of the worst teams in all of baseball. And you're in their ballpark. Nola has a great night, and you still barely win. By the way, it's only the 7th Phillies win on the season where they've won the game when scoring 3 or less runs.
The 6th inning bothered me the most. Now, before we even get to the 6th inning, think about it went to the 15th just because of Roman Quinn's 2-run bomb. Like, that was the only production we had from our offense. But the 6th inning, we had men on 2nd and 3rd, no outs. Then we had bases loaded, 1 out. And we couldn't score a run. It was pathetic. I was fuming at that moment. You got to score there. You have to score.
Yeah, let me just run down the pitchers who came in who the Phillies couldn't score against before they finally did score. You have Brad Farmer, Jimenez.
You don't like his stuff?
Shane Green, I understand. Shane Green is a beast right now. Trevor Rosenthal had a 22 ERA before the Nats released him. Let's remember that.
Yeah, I do.
You couldn't score a run on him. He had 2 Ks last night. You had this guy named Hardy. I barely remember what he was doing out there. And then you got 3 innings out of Nick Ramirez, another guy I've never heard of in my life. But he had 2 strikeouts.
Speaking of bullpen play, though, what do you think about Nick Pivetta in those, 3 2/3 he had yesterday? 5 Ks?
It was nice to see Pivetta stop complaining for 2 seconds and go out there and be a baller.
He showed some emotion walking off that field.
Hey, he had 5 Ks. That's what I want from Pivetta. I want him to go in that bullpen, own that job, be a beast, and stop complaining.
Absolutely.
3 2/3 innings, no hits, no runs. I'm cool with that. I like that. And you know what? It also actually incentivizes me to keep him in the bullpen, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. See, he's doing it as, hey, if I do good enough, maybe I'll get that starting role back. But we're thinking as fans, you do good in there, you're staying in there. We need you in there.
Right, we'll just pitch you every day. Who cares?
He could be a good bridge guy. If Arrieta gives you 5 innings, well, why can't he say pitch
for 2 innings?
Yeah, he could be that bridge guy to get us to the good old Hector Neris. No,
Hector Neris did give up no runs last night.
Yeah.
We should give the Phillies bullpen credit. Neris, Nicasio, Alvarez all went out there and gave up no runs and only 3 hits combined. So the bullpen did their job last night. It's just funny that for a team that's scoring almost 50 more runs than last year's team at this point in time, all of a sudden can't score runs. It just feels weird, and now you have this whole situation where today's lineup, Kapler's experimenting again. No Harper. He's not playing. Is that load management?
Yeah, well, Gabe said that he's not going to be sitting for a long time from this point. So it's one of those days you just gotta embrace it. Yeah, you just gotta embrace it.
Okay. We got JT Realmuto at first base.
He said he didn't want a DH.
It just feels weird. Like, why did you just make him play catcher? Like, are you really worried about his knees?
Well, he's played so many innings because we can't rely on Andrew Knapp to ever play.
I know, but
it's a tough situation. This is the game to do it, though, in my opinion.
I get it.
Like, this is the 2-game stretch.
Hoskins is the DH, by the way, for anybody wondering out there. He had a triple earlier in the game. So
couldn't knock him in, though. And JT couldn't. And JT has been struggling offensively. He went through 7 at-bats where he had 7 consecutive strikeouts.
Let me ask you this. Should the Phillies have sat Realmuto instead of Harper today?
To be honest with you, as bad as it looks on paper at the lineup, I probably would have done both.
609-403-0973 is text word again on the conversation. 609-403-0973. Got people already texting in. Again, we will get to the Eagles, Carson Wentz, the Sixers, and more throughout the show. Whatever's on your mind, 609-403-0973. I have a perfect analogy for Ben Simmons' jump shot video coming up in the show, so stay tuned for that. But we do want to get to the text, 609-403-0973. Texter says, how many of these pitchers you guys mentioned are team-controlled beyond this year? That's who they should target.
All of them.
Well, we mentioned all of them. Boyd's under control. Robbie Ray's got 1 more year of control. Stroman's got 1 more year of control. Boyd actually has 2 years, doesn't he?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, he has 2 years of arbitration control. And then Minor has 2 years as well. But like I said, Minor's left-handed, and he's having a very good year. I think that Minor's the guy you should just pretend like you're never going to get him. Not saying you shouldn't make the call. You should make everybody call. It's like if you ever read the book Moneyball, not the movie, which was okay, the okay version of it. You know, Brad Pitt was okay. Jonah Hill in that role was really weird, but in the book, he does call everybody. You know, Billy Beane he's calling the Indians, he's calling the White Sox, he's calling everybody. If you're Clintac, there's no harm in making a call. But I think that if you're the Phillies, the 2 guys that are going to probably cost you less is Ray and Stroman. By the way, the texter followed up and said, can't give up the farm. I'm not for that either. So, you know, the texter does agree with Clintac and McPhail. Although I got to wonder, if you have an opportunity to get a big name, your first instinct can give up the farm. Like, I understand you don't want to give up the farm, Hunter, for Robbie Ray, but if the Giants called and said, if you give us Alec Baum, we'll give you Madison Bumgarner, are you really going to say no?
Yes. I'm going to say no to that.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't think Madison Bumgarner is at that point of his career anymore, and I don't think Madison Bumgarner adding him to this team will not bring us to where we want them to go. It just won't.
Well,
And
any of these pitchers really?
no, but if we're in that, I'm not giving him up for a half a year, Madison Bumgarner, to not bring us anywhere, right? Like, why would that make sense? You need to, as a GM, as much as it is about the now, you need to think about the future as well. And that move just wouldn't be smart, in my opinion.
Sure, and Bumgarner is a free agent after this year, so
Correct.
you have to factor that in. And I'm not for getting Bumgarner either, but I feel like there has to be a guy out there that if the Phillies called, someone called the Phillies called them, and they demanded Alec Baum. I keep calling him Alex. Alec. A-L-E-C. Alec. That they would say yes. I just don't feel like that guy is in the trade market this year.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's going to be playing sooner rather than later. Like, this Franco experiment is over with. I think the Phillies organization want him to come in and actually play maybe next year. Like, that's how bad the Franco experiment has been. I don't know if they want to move forward with this every single year.
The problem with the bomb conversation, and this is something that, when Frank Close has come on for his Philly mailbags, comes on every Tuesday, or anybody else who's come on the Sports Bash or with Mays and Aton, is that no one's really told me about Alex Baum's defense. Like, no one, I feel like Franco, we undervalue his defense.
Oh, yeah, his defense is very solid. I will give him that. Very solid.
It's not like Baum is an elite fielder. Now, this year at Lakewood, his fielding percentage is 94.941. So it's not like he's a total slug when it comes to fielding.
Absolutely.
By the way, Remuto just hit a home run.
That's huge. That's huge for him.
Is it huge?
Huge.
Huge.
Huge. Got to get the
Bro.
monkey off the back.
Bro, it's huge.
Oh, man, is that good? Is that a good feeling for
You
him?
just mentioned that he hasn't been hitting. So
I know, and I love it.
maybe he's playing first base.
That's what I was just going to say that. Hey, new position. That's funny.
Anyway, yeah, Alec Baum has a .941 fielding percentage at Lakewood. So he's not great, but he's not horrible either. So, do you feel like Baum is a good enough fielder?
Well, we're going to have to throw him into the fire and see. This is one thing that bothers me from the Phillies' perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You see Juan Soto come up. He's 20 years old in his second year. You see all these players around the league playing at these younger ages, and we don't see any of our prospects until they're 24, 25. Like, Hazley just got called up. Maybe the Phillies are finally looking around and saying, let's throw our players into the mix to give them that chance to learn at that age. If they're good enough, and they'll stick. So we want to see these players come up and play, and hopefully the Phillies are catching on around the league because there's plenty of young players playing at that age. Plenty of them.
Just to inform people, Baum has been bumped up a couple times this year. He started at Lakewood. He played 14 games at third base with a .941 fielding percentage. Then he got bumped up to Clearwater, and he played 25 games at third base, and he had a .967 fielding percentage. So he actually got better there, but then he got worse when he got up to Reading, AA, where he has played 19 games, and he has a .889 fielding percentage. So I feel like if you combine that, I think he's playing good enough at third base that maybe you don't miss Franco's defense. I feel like that the Phillies don't respect Franco a lot, and I think that that's part of the reason why Franco doesn't play well, because he doesn't really have the support of the franchise.
I think he's had enough time to try and get our love for him. Like, this is what he is. He's going to go through those streaks where he's the best eighth hitter in baseball, and then he's going to go through ugly slumps of striking out and hitting 200 as an average. Like, it's inconsistency, and let's be real, Franco has been around for a long time. At what point is it, this is what he is? He's not consistent enough, and we need to move on and find a different player there.
Dan from EHT chimes in at 609-403-0973 on the text board. Dan, a loyal listener, he always chimes in a lot. He says, the Phillies are weird. They look great against the Dodgers and terrible against the Marlins. Middleton once suspended, though, so I like that.
Does he, though, or are we being lied to? We're only spending about, I believe it was 11th in baseball, 12th in baseball, in that range. So there's teams that spend more.
Well, it's a twofold weapon, though. It's a two-edged sword, I mean. On one hand, it's you don't want to overspend for the sake of spending. Like, remember when the Yankees were spending money on Carl Pavano and Jason Giambi. They didn't win anything with those guys.
Right.
When they eventually won a championship, it was because CC Sabathia, they acquired him and guys like that. It was like so far later than the overspend era. I don't think you want to spend for the sake of spending. And I think that this is where McPhail is good at his job. I think that he is protecting the franchise ownership from themselves. I think because McPhail is an old school baseball guy and that Klintak is more of a new age baseball guy, that the combination of those two are protecting Middleton from trying to turn into a Steinbrenner. I think, though, yes, you like the fact that Middleton is willing to spend, but I also like the fact that you're spending the money on Harper instead of Machado, right? You're giving up assets for Realmuto instead of a lesser guy with a bigger name. You know what I mean? You're not going out there and giving Craig Kimbrell a 3-year contract like the Cubs did. You know, you're not giving up that draft pick for Dallas Keuchel because you desperately needed a left-hander. I think the fact that Middleton wants to spend is good, but I do think that we overlook the fact that Klintak and McPhail are maybe protecting him from himself a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a mindset that's interesting to think about. But I will say this: when it comes to someone like Dallas Keuchel, to not spend that much money on Dallas Keuchel blows my mind, because he would help this team without a doubt. And that's one thing that bothers me from some Phillies fans. You know, I don't want to go get this guy because he's not good. Look at this guy's ERA. Look how this guy's performing. Look at this guy's age. We're throwing out Vince Velasquez and Nick Pivetta every 3-4 days. Like that has to stop. These players are better, and to pass up on someone like Dallas Keuchel and allow him to go to the Braves for that price tag, I don't know their mindset for that specific player. What was the process with Dallas Keuchel, and why were we not involved, knowing how poor our pitching staff was? Those kind of things bother me. The big name and the big contracts for Craig Kimbrell, I understand that. I wouldn't go as far as spend that either. But as for someone like Dallas Keuchel and certain specific situations individually, I don't know how they think.
By the way, Dan from EHT goes on to say, I don't know if I agree with this point, he says, there are only 2 teams in baseball anyway right now. It's the Yankees and the Dodgers. I like the Phillies' chances going forward, though, because of their willingness to spend money. I think you're overlooking the Astros.
A big time.
Astros are such a good baseball team. And as soon as they're 100% healthy, remember, they've had guys like Springer and Correa and Altuve and Bregman all injured at different points this year. So they've actually gone through their own set of injuries. I have to wonder with the Yankees, at what point does their luck run out? Because it feels like everyone's been injured and everyone who's filled in has played well. At what point are Aaron Boone's Savages no longer Savage? Like, they're going to have a cold streak at some point. The question is the cold streak going to hurt them in the long run? You don't want to get cold in September. You can get cold in August and be okay. But if those young hitters like Voit and all those guys get cold in September, the Yankees could be really in trouble.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about the Twins? Are the Twins fake? What about the Braves? The Braves are good. Now, are they at the level of Yankees and Astros? Maybe not, but once you're in the postseason, if you're hot at the right time, like they're talented enough to make some noise at least.
I think if you asked me to rank the National League, it's Dodgers, Cubs, Braves. And then after that, it depends on what your preference is. I would lean toward the Brewers for number 4, even though they're not technically in the wild card spot right now. And I think the Phillies are a better team than the Cardinals. So I think the Phillies are too far off from the guys who are the best teams in the National League. And the American League, I still give the American League to the Astros. I think the Astros are a bunch of monsters, and they're going to make a trade at some point. And then I think it's the Yankees after that. I would say after those 2 teams, I guess then I would go Twins.
Yeah, the Twins are like a fake hot team to me.
Because the thing with the Twins is I think they're going to make the playoffs. I actually think they're going to win the division at this point.
Yeah, they are. They're 3 games up on the Cleveland Indians as we speak.
But they're a pitcher away from being a legit contender. And I don't know if the Twins... do the Twins really want to give up their farm for Mike Minor?
Where did the Twins get so hot? When did that happen?
I felt like it happened last year when Buxton came back from the injury, and he went on that tear, and then the whole team just, followed him.
They're 61-39. Our roster is way better than theirs, and look at us right now. It's ridiculous. That's all I have. Ridiculous.
609-403-0973. I think this is a friend of yours. Brendan from Summers Point chimes in.
Okay.
He says, who are the top 3 pitchers in baseball right now?
Who do
you know this guy?
I don't. But
Okay.
I do know a Brendan, so I was like, wow, really, Brendan? And then you hit me with Summers Point.
Well, it says SP, so I'm assuming that's Summers Point.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe SP is something else.
Maybe.
Scott Van Pelt, I don't know.
But best 3 pitchers?
Best 3 pitchers in baseball. Brendan wants it right now.
Right now. All right. Vince Velasquez. No? We can't do Vinny V?
No.
Come on. He's having an outing today. Bases juice. He got out of the jam.
So?
Come on. That's elite stuff out of him.
Stop.
Okay. Best pitchers. Well, I'm trying to think. Like, I always go to the Mets when I think that because I always think of DeGrom, but he's definitely not having that type of season. I always go to Chris Sale when I'm thinking best pitchers, but once again, he's someone who hasn't been at the top of his game this season either. We're going to have to go with, well, where do you go? Where are you leaning?
I mean, Scherzer has to be in the conversation.
Always.
DeGrom gets some consideration, even though he's having a great of a year this year as he did last year. You got to put Ryu in the conversation because he's having a very good year for the Dodgers. Verlander's a beast right now for the Astros. Those are some of the guys I would throw out.
I'm going Scherzer as my number 1. He's my favorite. He's such a competitor. I know he's on a rival team, but the way he approaches the game from an athlete perspective, I love his mindset. I really do.
Just to be contrarian, I'm going to go Verlander because I think that you can't discount the fact that Verlander has had more big moments in big games than Scherzer has. And that wasn't just with the Astros. Remember, Scherzer was a young pitcher when the Tigers got to the World Series a decade ago. And he, in some ways, almost carried them to that World Series because basically it was 3 guys on that team and that was it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's other names on there like Kershaw, but...
Kershaw's taking a step back.
Yeah, he has. He has.
I feel like his best years are behind him.
So if we're going to go with the top 3, I guess we can go in no particular order, but we have Scherzer and Verlander in the mix.
Yeah, and I guess for right now, I would throw Ryu in there.
Yeah, I think we nailed it.